For this tune, it's so in like the zeitgeist of Christmas tunes. I always felt like this one can be more upbeat and have kind of that sort of swing, and maybe I went to a tinge more like gospel-y than maybe you would think of it as being, but I think it actually works really well when you kind of have these motions and that sort of rhythm to it. So it kind of started off slow, and I start on like a first inversion G. And this is another thing where I'll reharmonize it. So it doesn't actually, in the original, I don't think it goes to the 4 here. But from here, I move to the 4, like a major 6, sus2 type chord. So that's a C major 6 with the sus2. And then you got the 5 and that. So, and then I'm playing that same melody, but over this chord now. And I'm actually barring the 7th fret from the 4th string down. So then when the second time comes around with that melody, I'm moving to this like half diminished A half or C sharp half diminished chord. And then from here, so now we have that really nice stepward motion upwards. And so this is just a regular D major, but I'm omitting the 5th string, and I'm just kind of playing 6, 4, 3, 2, barring that. And then I'll play the melody from there. And then I'll move to a D sharp or an E flat, kind of diminished. And from there, I'm going to resolve to E minor. And then I kind of do this downwards motion from E chromatic. And then I'll kind of end around here, which is just this like C sharp over A major type thing. And this kind of gives you that like 2 dominant kind of sound, which kind of resolves nicely to G, which is your root chord in this tune. So basically do that twice. So first time, I basically do it the exact same way. And then from here, going into like the sort of, I guess, B section. I know they're both pretty chorusy sounding, but when you move up, so this is a cool part where you can harmonize, because anytime you have one note, basically any chord can work over it. It's just about how you contextualize it. So what I did was I just went regular G major 7 shape on the 5th string, and then I went to a diminished, which is just an A flat diminished or G sharp diminished, and then an A minor 9. And I play that melody over that chord. And then I move back down, but it's to an E major sus. So that's like an E major with a G sharp in the bass. And then from here, the chord that kind of brings us back into G major with this melody in the, so you have that C in the melody there, and so I'm playing an A half diminished. So it's really nice how that cadence kind of works. You can move from E major to A half diminished to back into G major. So now we're back in the original key. And from here, to follow the melody, I do some diminished stuff. So it's like. And so basically any time that I'm like going from 7 to 1 or 5 to 1, I like throwing in the sort of anything that kind of sounds outside, because when you have that much tension in a chord or in a movement, it's really easy to build up the tension, because like you're already hinging on that 5-1 change. Like your brain hears it and your brain wants that resolved. So throwing in some like, really dense sounding notes within those chords, within a 5 chord or within the 7 chord. So a lot of the times I'll add that flat 6, or to give it that more diminished sound. So when I resolve back to the 1, then it just becomes more resolved, and you kind of long for it more. And so when it comes, it's sweeter. And then the second time through that part of the melody, it's basically exactly the same. And sort of the last chord I play before going kind of more into the rhythmic groovy thing is this chord. And it's kind of just like a flat 9. Yeah, it's kind of like a flat 9, dominant 7, basically a 5 chord. And then from there, I kind of go into this groovy thing, which again kind of comes from that more like driven, gospel-y. I don't want to use that word too lightly, but yeah, kind of gospel-y thing. So where I'll play is this, in that kind of music, you hear a lot of like. So what I did was I kind of arranged it around that kind of motion or that kind of like swing feel. And so it's exactly the same chords as the first time, but I'm just playing them more rhythmically. And so to kind of get a feel for that is kind of understanding that sort of swing and that sort of time feel when you're playing specifically by yourself. It's hard to get that. So really enunciating some of those like in-between notes, some of those kind of almost ghosting. Like you hear that kind of like in between. I'm kind of plucking the muted strings. And it gives it more rhythm, more groove. So again, I go back to that, but that's a little more quick now. So just getting that under your fingers. Again, that comes from the Wes Montgomerys and the sort of neo-soul stuff that's kind of in the cultural zeitgeist of guitar players now. It's just moving that kind of as smooth as possible. So when I do that movement, I'm gonna go back, do it again. And so from that second time through kind of the A section, I'll move from that last note, E minor, and I have to get to 1, so I just kind of make it kind of major. And you kind of hear this in gospel music a lot too. You hear this in some blues too. It's just like moving from the dominant 6 or the major 6 chromatically up to the 1. And so that's kind of what I'm doing there. And then from there, playing that melody again, but instead kind of reharmonizing it again. So you have this melody note here. So that particular chord movement is just going 1 with, I guess, the first inversion. And then I'm doing like a, I guess, half diminished like A again, but it's in this, with the first inversion. And then I'm doing this sort of minor 4 with a 6 in it. So that's something you hear in a lot of like blues or gospel music, is that particular chord movement from like a dominant 2 chord to the minor 4 chord to the 1. So I tried to incorporate that with the melody, and so that's how it sounds. And then I go back to that sort of half diminished 2 chord, or the A half diminished. And sometimes I'll play that second melody over an E major, and then move back into the regular key, which is just. And sometimes instead of just going to the 5, I think one of the times I was doing it minor, it's kind of minor 4. You can think of this as the minor 4. You can think of this as like a flat 7 dominant with a 9. But I think of it more as a minor 4, because I just feel like I don't know, that's how my brain works. And then yeah, kind of go back into it. And just kind of that particular rhythm using those chords is just kind of super fun to play. It's good to get that under your hands, because the motions, like, it's good to sort of have that groove built around those movements in your left and right hand. So it's kind of just a good exercise in working with both of them. And that's kind of like this like quartet type playing that's like super, super old, that I kind of incorporated into it. And so that's mainly it. Everything else is just sort of these, some random pentatonic things in the middle. But outside of that, that's the main structure of how I place those chords together and use them in that sort of chord melody way. Yeah, hope you enjoyed. Thank you.